Hello everyone, and welcome back to the farm. This being our 10th video up on YouTube, I figured I'd do something just a little bit different than what we've done in the past. I haven't really touched on who we are, how we got into farming, and where we look to go from here. So that's what we're going to do today. It all started back in 1978 when my mom and dad bought this piece of property. So I'm the second generation to live and own this piece of land. And I'm very, very fortunate and lucky to have that opportunity. So my mom and dad weren't farmers. My dad raised a few pigs when I was growing up, sold them off to some guys he worked with. But other than that, we weren't farmers. They just worked normal jobs just like a lot of other people did. So growing up, we had a Farmall Super C here that my dad had bought from a guy he worked with. We used to use it to maintain the property, mostly just plow the driveway in the wintertime, mow the field in the summertime, and cultivate the gardens. The neighbor had a Super C as well, so I was very familiar with the Farmall line. Well, in 2007, I went to work for a local Bobcat New Holland dealer, and there was a gentleman there that I worked with who ended up becoming a very good close friend of mine that collects Massey Harris tractors and has a whole line of them. And I'd go over there on Saturdays and help him work on those, work on other things, whatever. Well, we ended up having a problem with the Super C that we had here on the property. And instead of sending it to the scrapyard, I decided, you know what, I want to restore it. So I started that restoration process, and it took 3 years, a lot of time, spending money on it here and there when I could. But after 3 years, it was done, complete. And I started going to antique tractor shows, tractor pulls, and by that point, by the time that tractor was restored, I had acquired a 1939 Farmall H, and then also another 1949 Farmall H that you'll see used here quite a bit on the farm. But that's where really our farming started, was the antique tractors. So after a number of years of traveling to different tractor shows and tractor pulls, they got to be pretty monotonous after a while. Same old every year. And quite frankly, the tractors spent more time sitting in the barn than they did really doing anything else. So in 2017, I got thinking, I said, it'd really be nice to do something more with the tractors. And I knew this 10-acre piece of land here was overgrown brush at the time. So I contacted the landowner, told him what I had in mind, and he was all for it. So I came up here and plowed it all under. I disked it, seeded it to a nice Timothy orchard grass, ryegrass, and clover mix. Next thing you know, I had a haylock growing. So in the meantime, while it was growing, I went out and bought a whole line of hay equipment. Bought a hay bine, bought a tedder, bought a hay rake, a couple flat rack wagons, and also a baler. So that's how we got started. We didn't start with livestock. We actually started making hay. So by the summer of 2018, we got our first hay crop off, and we also had some pumpkins here that were planted. Those were growing, so we were off and running. Things were going great, and we were doing that all not even living here. We just come, do what we had to do, then leave. Well, that all changed in 2019 when my mom and dad decided they wanted to downsize and we wanted to upsize. So I ended up moving back home and becoming the second generation to live here. And I feel very, very fortunate to be able to do that. So, 2019, we moved back home. Then everybody knows what happened in the spring, late winter, early spring of 2020, COVID hit. By that point, we had started raising a few cows out of the very bottom of our barn, the old barn that was here. We were raising just a couple calves. But by that point, we had realized, harvesting hay, it was a lot of work to bale hay the way we do, and then bring it, unload it, put it in the barn. I remember a couple of real late nights, 10, 11 o'clock at night, wrapping things up just to get the hay in the barn so it didn't get wet. And then when you had customers come, you'd have to reload it out of the barn and put it in, on a trailer and a wagon, and there was a lot of work. So while I was laid off of work from COVID and for 2 months, we ended up building this addition. A friend of mine and we built a 20-foot by 40-foot long addition in 4 days. And that has been a huge savior. Now when we bale hay and it's on the wagons, we can bring it down, we back it in the barn, and there it sets till it either goes in the barn or a customer comes, gets it, or whatever. Well, once we moved home, we also decided, okay, we're going to do some chickens. So I had an old shed that I acquired from my brother, decent looking. We put it down closer to the house so we didn't have to travel so far through the snow in the wintertime to take care of the chickens. I built the one run off it that you see here on the left-hand side of the chicken coop. And we just had, I don't know, 7 or 8 egg layers. And we grew from there. So after we built the addition, half of it was meant for the cows. The other half was just equipment storage. But we were able to make things to where we could get 3 wagons inside comfortably when we had hay to put inside. And we had a barnyard built off of it, not this design, but something similar. But, you know, it's like anything else. As you grow, you go through growing pains. You learn what works, what doesn't work. And we definitely had to make some changes. So we had done those over the years. So things were going well with the cattle. We decided to expand into pigs. So in 2021, we bought our first litter of pigs, just 4. We raised them inside for about a month, and then we moved them outside to an outside pasture. They had to run outside all summer long, and shipped them off to the butcher in the fall, and that went really well. Now we had a pork business as well. The egg layers, we picked up a little bit with those too, but not a lot. I think we had probably 10 or 12 at the time. So, you know, that was still just kind of a hobby thing with them. So after a few years of realizing, you know, we didn't have the best setup for handling cattle and moving cattle around and growing cattle the way we do, various stages and sizes, I knew we needed something else. So in the fall of 2022, I built this. It's a 3-sided building, nothing special. It's 20 foot wide by 24 foot long. It's open to the east, so we can make our larger cows have a place to get in out of the weather. And that really changed things around here. Now we have 3 designated pastures or barnyards for the animals, mainly the cattle, to be in. So I can maneuver them by size, where they need to be. And this building I also took into consideration for loading out. You get them in the barn, that's as far as they can go. I get them over into one corner, I can back the cattle trailer right up to it and, you know, kind of confine them into the far corner of the trailer and close a couple gates behind them. The only place they can go is on the trailer. It works very well. So, you know, over time, it's like anything else. You try to improve things, and that's what we've done, definitely with the cattle. Now we've got the barnyard set up pretty much how we want them. As you've seen through the pasture project, now we're expanding into more pastures. That's where we need to grow the most for the cattle. So that brings us to the spring of 2023. Things are going really well with the beef and the pork. Eggs, you know, we were just still kind of maintaining with that. Pumpkins, we had been selling pumpkins at that point for 4 to 5 years, and things were really going well. We had a couple stands set up, but those are very labor intensive. Well, in the spring of 2023, we decided to enter into the pastured poultry market. So we ordered some Cornish cross chicks and raised them up, put them out in a pasture box. But we knew we couldn't sell those the way we were selling our beef and pork. We sell our beef and pork through freezer trade, quarter, halves, and wholes, respectively. So we reached out to a local farmers market and talked to them, and they agreed to let us come sell our chicken and eggs that we had because there was nobody there selling it. They had a couple beef and pork vendors, but no one selling fresh chicken. So we decided to, you know, start off with 50 birds. We raised those 50 birds up, and we went to the farmers market and sold them out in 4 weeks. So I immediately ordered another batch of chickens, and unfortunately that was, not till late summer that we were able to get them. And we ended up catching the last 4 weeks of market, and things went really, really well. The chicken has really, really been a hot seller for us. Being able to sell by the cut at the local market and not having to, take them to a butcher, they're very, very cost effective for us. We have foregone doing pumpkins. They're just so labor intensive. And last year, I planted pumpkins. It was really, really dry here in the spring. I planted the pumpkins. 3 days later, we had 3 inches of rain in like 2 days. And I had a huge gully wash through the middle of the pumpkin patch. Then the pumpkins that did come up turned yellow. I said, you know what? I've had enough of doing pumpkins. So, you kind of look at what makes your money and what's the most and least labor intensive, and that's what we decided. So not only did we grow our broiler market for 2024, we also expanded on our egg layers as well. We had quite a demand last year at the market for fresh eggs, and we figured if we're going anyways, we might as well bring fresh eggs as well. So we increased our flock from 16 to 46 egg layers. So we'll see how that goes this year. When we started farming in 2017, just making hay, just a way to exercise our antique tractors, I never would have imagined we'd be where we're at today. But I'm very thankful for it. Definitely can't do it without the customers that we have. We have a very, very loyal customer base, and that just continues to grow. Quite frankly, we have more customers than what we have supply for. That's a good problem to have. But we're definitely continuing to expand, investing in our farm, and we just want to be viable. We're not a homestead. We've consumed very little of the products we make. A little bit of beef, a little bit of pork, a few eggs here or there, but for the most part, everything we, produce on the farm gets sold. So with that being said, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.